Any entrepreneur will figure out the solutions to a problem to continue to grow. We talked to a sponsor of the Crude Truth to get more on this episode of the Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
NAPE is a proud sponsor of the Crude Truth. Be sure to register for the NAPE Expo 2024, February 7th through the 9th at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. Hurry and register today. NAPE, where deals happen.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry, committed to being good stewards of the environment and providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Oil and Gas Workers Association. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day or night it is. Thank you as always for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth. I just want to take a moment to tell everybody to please like, subscribe, and send any questions that you may have about any of the episodes, and we can definitely be sure to fill out whatever answer and get you questions back to you as I mumble on these words here this morning. The reason why I'm mumbling, I think, is because I'm just overly excited once again to have on just such a great guest. And not only are they a guest, but as I mentioned in the teaser, they're also a sponsor of the Crude Truth. They have been here since I first started the show almost 2 years ago now. My guest today is the president and CEO of Air Compressor Solutions, Brian Stubbs. Brian, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh,
man.
A lot of fun. Well, thank you. Thank you for making the trip up to Dallas and to coming to the show. And Brian, I talk to you often, and I always say it, but thank you so much for being a sponsor of the Crude Truth and being a mentor. I come to you, I talk to you about things, and so thank you so much for all that you've been able to do for me.
Entrepreneurship's all about is helping others, right?
That is the whole point to it. No, it is, and I think we're slowly getting back to that where people are helping others out. I know in my father's generation, especially in the oil game, it was you keep everything close. Yep. And you don't tell anybody what you're doing. Don't tell, now there's some trade secrets still you don't want to share all the time. And I think we had that meeting in the pre-production. I said, hey, because, I asked you to come on to talk about being an entrepreneur today. But, then I say, hey, I don't want you to give away all the secrets, but you've been able to do some great things. And the greatest thing I think you've done is be a sponsor of the Crude Truth since the inception of the idea.
Thank you. We think so too.
And, I had a chance that we got to meet, not meet, but visit there at the Permian Basin International Oil Show. And so if anybody, for all those out there that listen to that, of course, you said yes before I even finished with the concept. or with telling you the concept of the Crude Truth. So thank you so much.
No problem. It's been a lot of fun. How long has it been? Has it been 2 years?
2 years. 2 years. And then I've known you now, I think, for 4.
I think that's what we said.
Yes. Yeah. And it's been a blast. It's been a blast. And again, I know you'll meet me for a cup of coffee there in Midland, whether it's 6:30 in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning or even in the evening time. It's like, hey, let's get together whenever I'm in town. So I cannot thank you enough. But to start off, Air Compressor Solutions, you guys are a one-stop shop for...
So we do pretty much our main business in Odessa, at least, is Ingersoll Rand air compressors. So yes. Honestly, it's been a great ride just because we're switching to air compressors to get rid of emissions and releasing natural gas at mostly batteries, but also tanks and wells and through the whole stream now. Yes. So we provide a lot of air compressors for the oil field in Odessa. Mm-hmm. But we also do Doosan generators and a couple other brands. So any kind of a generator that you might need or portable air compressor or diesel driven, air compressor we can do, and some other small equipment like Ingersoll Rand tools and things like that. So wide product line, lots of neat stuff.
It's a huge product line, for guys out there that may have be like, hey, what is one problem that you're helping solve out there for these oil and gas companies that are like, hey, I've got an issue, can you give us an example?
So it's actually the main one that we do is, again, oil companies trying to be more green and more environmentally friendly.
Yes.
And so one of the big learnings they had was, hey, we release a lot of natural gas into the atmosphere just through our production, and then using natural gas to actuate the valves, especially at batteries. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a little poof each time, but you have 100 valves in 100 locations. It can add up pretty quickly. So for the past about 6 or 7 years, we've been out replacing the use of natural gas as a power source at batteries, mm-hmm. and switching that to clean air. And it's actually been a really neat journey because that was the main reason, but now we're seeing a lot of benefits to using air. It's cleaner, it's easier to maintain. You don't get stuff in your lines. You don't have to, we put dryers on it, so you don't have to worry about water and other things when it gets cold. So it actually has increased uptime at batteries, which was kind of a secondary effect. But now that we're learning and working with some of our customers, we're really learning it's good for the environment, but it's also really good for uptime. It's really good for production, and does some lot of neat things at those locations.
Well, you mentioned like even when it gets cold, if we all remember a few years ago when basically everything froze up, so that it can help with that as well and keep things running, so to speak, at least on that end.
Yes. So really, we compress the air and then we put it through what's called a dryer. Mm-hmm. So it takes all the water out, and then, you pretty much have pure air in your system. So once you get all that water out, then you don't really have to worry about freezing. I think most of the dew points are set at -40, which I hope we never get in Texas. We'll see what the weather does this winter, but we'll see what happens. So you're pretty much water free, and again, you don't have the kind of the oils and the carryover stuff that you have in natural gas in there anyways that can kind of clog stuff up. So it's a lot cleaner product, a lot easier to work with. Safety issues go way down. You don't have to worry about breaking the line open and something happening.
Yeah.
So it's a much cleaner, easier system once we figured it out. And again, a lot of our customers helped us figure that out, and it's been a great partnership since then.
Man, when you get somebody when you and your team, y'all come out and let's say y'all are, what is that process that takes place when you guys are swapping out from a natural gas powered unit to the air compressor? Is it a pretty big project or pretty simple?
Actually, it's fairly simple. We have one customer now that does one location a day, retrofits. It's been a really neat process to learn and watch. So, they pretty much do the piping up to what we call our skid. So we now can skid these products. So we put an air compressor along with a dryer along with a tank, and put that all on one skid. So literally the customer just has to hook up electricity to one side and air on the other, and then they're ready to go. Yeah. But downstream, you do have to change some of your valves out. They have a different membrane and a different filter on those air valves if they're natural gas or air. But those crews are getting faster and better at that every day. They can, I think, our customers said they can do about 75 a day.
Oh, wow.
Swapping out valves. So they can set an air compressor, run the electricity, plumb it in, and then switch over everything at the battery, and do about one a day. And we have 2 or 3 customers doing that right now, and it's super interesting to watch. And the production group usually doesn't even skip a beat. So that's
wow.
super important. We know in the oil business, it's all about putting product down the pipeline, right? So
yes.
That's pretty amazing. They might be down for 4 to 6 hours, and that's it.
Well, that was actually being a producer myself. That was going to be my next question was, how are y'all doing with the production? Like, are y'all stopping it or not? But if y'all are actually just continue to move and keep it going, that helps out tremendously.
Yes.
Because, whether it's 4 hours or 24, no production doesn't help.
Yes, so, you can't get that time back is what I was always talking about. The only thing you can get back is the time you lose when you're out producing. So.
Yes, exactly. and we may consider it money in the bank by having our oil in the tanks, but hey, we also need to get it sold every day and down the line. With what you guys have been up to there at Air Compressor Solutions, the reason why I asked you to come back on is that as we're getting into 2024 now, what you've been able to do there over the last 4 years is just, you've expanded, I think, to 3 or 4 times the size that you were 4 years ago?
We're opening our 5th location right now.
Yes.
So, yes.
And you were at, I think, 1 right before COVID, and then you started opening places up during COVID. And so you haven't missed a beat.
We took a stumble, I think. We at least stuttered our step a little bit, but, 'cause I think everybody did that in COVID, and we definitely had to take a step back and scratch our heads and say, hey, how are we going to tackle this problem? Because this problem nobody had ever seen before, and there definitely wasn't a book to read or somebody to go. I couldn't call you up and say, hey, Ray, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because no one knew. So it was definitely, we had to take a step back and pretty much change our business model and change our business plan. I tell everybody, as a service company in Odessa, Texas, I can't believe we got everybody able to work outside of the building that we live in.
Yes,
right. So
right.
everybody always showed up to our office every morning. Everybody showed up. We had people that were working remote. We had technicians we were delivering parts to where they were, so they didn't have to come to the building and interact with more people. And, just our whole entire business plan was turned upside down, but that's what it took to keep going and keep producing and keep, solving customer problems.
Well,
along the way.
But you were also able to open up another location like in 2020. And
Yes.
that was not El Paso.
Yep, it was El Paso.
Okay, not Amarillo.
Right. So Amarillo was first. We opened it up in 2018.
That's right.
And then we opened up El Paso in 2020 and Albuquerque in 2021.
Right. And I mean, so you were able to continue to do those things. So first of all, you said the first step was take a step back, obviously, and see what's going on. And, by taking that step back, you almost, it looks like, hey, man, we didn't stumble. It's like, hey, we just had to stop, see what's going on, and reassess. So as you were opening up Albuquerque in 2021, is that correct?
Albuquerque was the third. Yes.
Yes. Yep. What was it that you were doing differently between, let's skip El Paso for a second, because that was straight up COVID.
Yeah.
But in 2018, when y'all opened up Amarillo, what was definitely noticeably different in opening up between Amarillo in 18 and opening up the Albuquerque in 2021?
Yeah, it was just a lot more kind of things you had to do. Real estate was still a little weird. It took us a long time to figure out if we wanted to buy real estate or rent there in Albuquerque, just because the market was really strange in 2021. Interest rates were really low, but there was no inventory. So what do you do? So we ended up renting. Again, we didn't know where we wanted to be. If you think back then, that's when everybody was saying commercial real estate's dead.
Yes.
No, everybody's going to work from home. So we didn't want to invest in commercial real estate. Turns out we should have. But again, those are the mistakes you make. But like I said, I remember we spent months trying to find a place to rent. Yeah. And then again, banks were pretty open at that point. We were telling them, hey, this is going to take us 6 months to get this up and open. Middle of 2021, we hope the economy's back. We hope that we're over this. And we kind of laid out the plan to them, hey, if it's 6 months, awesome. If it's a year and a half, we can still do it. Mm-hmm. And it was just a lot of kind of hoops to jump through that you didn't really have to before. Again, interviewing in a future employees, it was kind of still of a pain. And, December of 2020, it was still a pain to get people in and have a face-to-face interview with them. And, a lot of people said, I'd like to take candidates to dinner or lunch and just get to know them and get to know us. And a lot of people said, no, I don't want to go to lunch in public. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll do a Zoom interview, which, again, I'd like to talk to people and shake hands.
Yeah.
But we had a couple candidates say, no, I don't want to go to lunch. Okay. So, working through that, how do you feel comfortable with a new employee that you've never met? And,
right.
It's just kind of a weird situation where you have to work through these little things that you didn't ever think were a big deal, and all of a sudden they're gigantic deals. So,
well, you mentioned the banks and how they were actually being open. Was it a big bank or was it like a small bank?
At the time we were at a local bank, and again they were in Midland, and they knew probably more about the oil field than I did anyways, and they were starting to see things turn around, starting to see a little bit of traction in the markets. Oil prices were starting to come back up by then. And so it literally was, if you went to them with a plan,
yes.
And I would say, especially back then, and I think it's even still true today, you show them that history. Hey, we made it through the bad part. We made it through 2020. We made it through negative oil. We made it through 8 months of, no growth. We made it through this. We did that. And opened a branch, which helped actually a lot when we went to the bank, said, hey, we've already done this. But yeah, it was really interesting to go talk to the banks, and they definitely were kind of telling us they've got two types of customers: the ones that are still trying to figure it out, the ones that they're not sure about, they don't have confidence in, and the ones that came to us with a plan, with an idea, and then told us what they did the last 8 months to get through 2020.
So basically, you showed them the good and the bad.
Yep.
Even though the bad, people shouldn't be afraid because like I'm using for our listeners, I'm using quotations saying the bad because everybody was in the same boat in some form or fashion, but you just showed up saying, hey, here's my plan, being a leader, and this is what we're going to do. And the bank was able to at least go, oh, okay, you're not afraid here. And this is what you got. And this is what you did pre-COVID. And then this is what you did during COVID. And, oh, I'm still here.
Yes. And it took a lot of kind of weird convincing on our side, I think. And again, other people that were going to the banks were doing it at the same time. We didn't do anything special, but convincing the banks they shouldn't look at your 2020 financials was really hard because they're like, oh, any other time, hey, we had, a little bit of downturn. We had, 20% dip in revenue. Yeah, everybody did. Our customers were at home. And so trying to walk them through that process of this is what 2020 really meant. Yes, we took a decrease. Revenue was down, all of this stuff, but it's not as bad as people made it look. And especially if you started digging through the numbers and explaining those to the bank, which took a lot because there weren't a lot of people asking to grow at that point in time.
Right.
It took a lot to convince them, hey, 2020 is not really who we are as a company. It's not what we do long term.
Yeah.
It is a blip out of our control, but we recovered and we managed through it. That should tell you a whole lot more and make that a positive.
Well, knowing what you know now, I want to switch gears to your 2020 opening of El Paso. Would you do that again? Would you open up a branch during something like COVID again?
I tell people that was one of the hardest, dumbest things I think I've ever done. I don't know what we were thinking. We made a plan, we made a schedule. We pretty much copied what we did in Amarillo. We thought it would be pretty easy just to say, it's both in Texas. It's, both this, both that. We can just cookie cutter it too. But El Paso especially was going through times where they were shutting down the city because of COVID was spiking and they were having, more and more cases and deaths and things like that. So it was pretty serious in El Paso, especially compared to Midland, Odessa area.
Okay.
So yeah, they would shut down the city.
So let's kind of time context because 2020 something like it was like a long year.
It was a lifetime ago.
I know. Well, one, it feels like it was a lifetime ago. I mean, here it is, only 3 years ago, almost 4 now. But you figure we shut down in Midland in spring break of 2020. Yep. So when did the plan to open? Like when was El Paso like, hey, we're gonna do El Paso? When did that happen? So way before 2020.
It did. So we're a dealer for Ingersoll Rand, and so they kind of have territories that we are solely responsible for taking the customers in that geographical area. So what had happened is we were working through moving into all of New Mexico and far west Texas, El Paso area, pretty much at the end of 2019. Okay. That kind of got put on hold for about 3 months. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, we're ready to move forward. So we had to react fairly quickly as a company. So we kind of made a business plan. We had a schedule. We kind of put it on the shelf for about 3 months until they came back and said, hey, we're ready to move forward. I think we kind of finally signed all the paperwork and attorneys did all their stuff in June. And then it was kind of off to the races. Hey, let's go figure this out. We have a plan. But again, it definitely was everything that worked in the old branch in Amarillo 2 years ago before just wasn't working. So, looking at, I bring up real estate, it's just kind of funny. We just couldn't look at buildings. Yeah. We had a real estate agent there in El Paso and he was, researching and stuff, but a lot of the owners wouldn't let us in a building, especially if there was a spike in cases of COVID. Yeah. They're like, oh, sorry, we're closed down. And so it was really hard just to see stuff. Going into a new city, we wanted to meet with the city and the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, and they've got a great organization called the Borderplex, which is an economic development group that does El Paso, Las Cruces, and Juarez. We wanted to meet with them, but you just can't do face-to-face conversations. So a lot of Zoom calls that again just felt weird at the time, and all these people I've known for 4 years and I haven't shook their hands yet, and that's just kind of strange coming from the oil business. We shake hands still. Yes, holy. So cow. It was a lot of that kind of thing. That how do you do this? And I remember we found a building we liked, and it had kind of some problems in trying to find a contractor that would come look at it and an architect that could look at it, your normal steps. Yeah. And so that deal kind of died just because we couldn't get people to do what we needed them to do and get into that building. So we found a great location, though. Actually, I like our new location better than that one anyways. So it worked out in the end. But just finding those resources and finding people to do what are kind of the mundane part of opening a branch were just really difficult.
Right. Like, so basically, it's like, hey, man, all the stuff that we take for granted
Yeah.
was really hard. And now, here we are, like I said, going into 2024, and you're now looking at expanding into Carlsbad,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I mean, so you're literally taking West Texas and hopefully just take over New Mexico. I mean, I
Yes.
think we need a whole lot more of you probably in New Mexico.
We can find
for a lot of
customers. It
reasons,
all
yeah.
starts with customers. So
But what is it that you're finding that it's like, okay, you did 2020, you did 2021. Now it's like, what is it that, like, I feel like, I mean, you just basically take out the blueprint now, take it to the bank and go, here you go.
Yep. Again, we do kind of weird things at ACS. So we actually, I've switched banks. Honestly, we had a great relationship with our bank there in Midland, but we kind of just outgrew them, which is, again, things that you don't think about when you're growing, especially kind of large growth or, multiple growth. You don't think about outgrowing your bank. But we're kind of getting to the point where, we don't do that size of company anymore. So found a bank out of Houston, a great bank with us. And so once we got all that figured out, again, we had to teach them what we do, how we do it.
Yeah.
Again, brought them a plan, brought them, some history and said, hey, we've done this 3 times, 4 times now. So actually on the same day, we bought a company or a building in Carlsbad.
Okay.
We bought an office building across the street there in Odessa and a vacant lot next to that were all for sale. So I think we had some kind of pent up demand to grow. And again, working with a bank, working with a real estate agent, trying to figure out what that looks like. So the branch in Carlsbad should open up in February.
Yeah.
Moving into that. Again, that's an awesome community to open a business in. I can't talk highly enough. They really open you with open arms. They're, hey, new company, here you go. Honestly, as soon as we bought the building, everybody just came out and said, hey, you're here, you're part of the community now, how can we help you out? And it's been just an awesome experience getting to know them. So we're working through that, and it's just an amazing process now that people are excited to have people move in, excited for growth, and excited for new ideas to come into their community.
And, I think that's awesome. And I think a lot of people are looking for that right now. It's like, they're excited about the new, it's almost like, in a way, people's eyes are now being not opened or enlightened or anything, but just people's eyes are open to the possibilities again of all the great things that they can do and that we can do as a nation. And I really hope we can continue to, to do that, especially with us in the oil and gas industry. Off air, we were talking about all these big mergers and things like that going on. And it's like, I'm excited for them. I mean, being a small operator, hey, to be at the size of an Exxon one day, that's a dream out there that, I would say, if you put on a vision board and just can only imagine, just being like a pioneer.
Yep.
Same thing, so you're seeing all this growth out there and then all this production in the oil and gas industry right now. Where do you think, I know we kind of talked about a little bit, what are you hearing on the ground right now about where we think, oil's headed here as we go into 2024?
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's kind of weird. I think there's always a wide band of projections, and depending on who's on the news that morning or what's going on in the world, that band kind of moves. And I think what we've seen is I feel like, number one, especially the big operators have really flattened their growth curve. So they don't want the booms and the busts anymore. And that's kind of what we talk about all the time. They want, good, steady growth every year. Yeah. And I think a lot of them, again, a lot of due diligence on their part, have made it where they can keep producing at a constant level, no matter what gas and oil prices are. Yeah. And that's pretty amazing, especially just from 10, 15 years ago. That's not how the world worked. And so once you kind of have that foundation, then those conversations changed very quickly of, we want, vendors and partners that can build with us. Yeah. And so that's really been our model the past 3 years, is build with them. And so through that conversations, they're talking about, I don't think very many people, and I don't know who they are in Midland and Odessa, that think oil is going to get below 70 in the next 12 months. And I think that's a pretty safe number for everybody. I think everybody's happy at 70. And then it's kind of only up from there. And I think we've talked about this before, but I have stopped watching national news because it kind of just doesn't apply to the oil and gas business anymore.
It doesn't. No.
We're talking about recessions and shrinkage and all this kind of stuff, but oil and gas just keeps, 10%, 20% growth every year. And it is what it is.
No, and you talk about how it doesn't affect it. It's crazy. Here another thing we were talking about off air is that while we're recording, at the time we're recording, Israel is at war. I mean, well, let me say it like this: the Middle East is at war, and prices are still below $80 again. The time we're recording this, so everything's out the window.
Yes.
And but that $70, I've told people for 2 or 3 years now that 65 to 75 is the perfect number where oil and gas companies make money and the economy can thrive.
Yes.
So we'll see where it goes for sure. I know I've been on my show and other shows earlier this year and probably up until even August saying we were going to average $100 oil this year. We'll see if we even hit $100 oil, by the end of 2023. You also mentioned you working with your vendors, and you've got one of your great vendors, Doosan, who's getting ready to do some exciting things. And let's talk about Doosan a little bit, and then also all the great things that they're up to.
Yeah, so Doosan's a really interesting company. I tell everybody they're kind of the General Electric of the East. So they're a very large company, and they do a lot of neat things all around the world. But inside the United States, they've actually done a really good job on kind of Americanizing their products and their business practices. So most of their work is done either in Fargo, North Dakota, or in North Carolina. Okay. And so they're U.S. based. They do a lot of really good stuff. I think they make a really high quality product. Where we're involved with them now is they make portable air compressors and portable generators. So in the oil and gas business, they're great backups. If a location goes down for whatever reason, we can pull a backup air compressor out there, fill it full of diesel fuel, and they can run. Also for obviously construction, you see them at every bridge and construction site out there. So there's a lot of need for those portable power and portable air compressors and generators. And Doosan, I think, makes a really good oil-filled ready product, and they're not all oil-filled ready. Having a trailer live through a lease road is an amazing event sometimes.
Yeah.
So they do a really good job with that. But Doosan actually owns the Bobcat small equipment brand, and they actually have a Doosan large equipment brand and forklifts. And so they're actually combining all of those all that equipment in those market segments into the Bobcat brand. So we're really exciting. We see that as a really big growth opportunity for ACS. We get to now bring in a new brand to our portfolio. We get to brand that, we get to market it, and that's going to be a great thing to have kind of a common brand. So
that's awesome.
Exciting.
That is very exciting. I mean, everybody knows Bobcat, and I think all the quality. I think people that they know Doosan. You know what I like?
It's a niche market, but everybody knows who it is.
But they know who it is, and it's like, okay, let me go get the dude. I know it's not like you're saying about now that they have the field ready equipment, but even before that, it was like, I know that's not going to let me down.
Yes.
Like, come on, I don't want. I'm not going to compare them to any other type of tools or anything, because I don't know others. But I just know that hey, that's a great company and a good brand. One thing before we part ways is like, here we're going into 2024. For any of our listeners or viewers out there that are looking to expand, maybe just into maybe adding one more store, what are some tips? Because you mentioned the banking. I actually never even thought about that. Also, it's like, there's so many small things that we can't take for granted or that we can't overlook anymore. What's one or two things that you would, if somebody said, hey man, I'm thinking about expanding in 2024. What do you say to them?
So I think one of the things that I wish somebody would have told me when I bought ACS and started being a real entrepreneur is entrepreneurship is really about your support system, and you're only as good as your support system. So banks are a big part of that, especially in a capital intensive industry like oil and gas. You got to have a good relationship with the bank. But it actually you got to have good employees. And we have a great leadership team now at ACS. They're doing amazing things every day, probably even today, and I'm not even there. So they can do it without me too, which is a very big benefit of a great team. But they're solving hard problems every day and having a good team involved. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't spend enough time thinking about the team and how you're going to do it. But getting those right people in place where you don't have to do that for them or manage them every day or every problem is really how you grow. And that's very important. The other one I would say is, again, we're kind of going down this at full speed sometimes, this road of growth, is the leader myself. I've learned I need to get out and think about the business a lot more than a lot of entrepreneurs do. I still go out in the field. I still help customers, still go to customers' meetings. But about one day a week, I need to get in the office just to work on the business and really think about what our growth is, what I see. It's great talking to customers and people like you to get data and information in, but at some point in time, you got to just sit down and start working through what's that long-term plan, 2-year plan, 4-year plan, and really spend time thinking about that. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, we put our head down, we go solve problems, we grow, we do what we need to do, but really spending time to think about what you want to do in 2-5 years is really important.
Yes, I like that one. And for anybody out there that is looking for some air compressor solutions,
Yes.
How can they reach you guys?
So we're super simple. We've got locations in Odessa, Amarillo, Albuquerque, and El Paso, and soon Carlsbad. So we're easy to find on the internet. Our website is www.acsir.com. But we're on Facebook and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff too, and see stuff from us all the time. And you always like us, so you can always go to your stuff and just click on us, because we're always on those, which we greatly appreciate.
Well, I agree, Jay. I tremendously, Brian, have enjoyed this is just, for all the listeners out there, I just want to say thank you again for everything and the mentorship that you've brought to the table. And I hope everybody out there has had a great chance to listen to why it is that I come to you, so I go, hey man, here's what I'm working on. What do you think? And you're like, well, let me tell you, and you're doing it wrong, RT. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I don't know if I've ever said those words.
You have not. But no, Brian, I cannot thank you enough, and thank you so much for coming to Dallas to the studios here.
Yes.
And this is what it's about.
This is awesome.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much. And again, to all of the listeners out there, please check out Air Compressor Solutions, one of the great sponsors of the CRUDE Truth. Please like and subscribe, and please be ready for another episode here as we go into 2024. Thank you as always, and we'll see you on another episode of the CRUDE Truth.
Again, thank you to our sponsors, LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Exec Crew, Oil and Gas Workers Association, Pecos Country Operating.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.